Hey, this is George. Have you ever heard of Anchor.fm? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. Number one, it's free. Number two, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can hear it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Check out Anchor.fm on the iOS and Android systems.
Need psychotherapy online or in person? Check out tinyurl.com/THT psychotherapy. The George Brassey podcast is made possible with funding provided from Brassey Global Strategies, LLC, a leading political consulting, public policy, government affairs, and research firm. Are you interested in running for elected office? Need advice? Call or email George, 708-769-5015. Brassey Global Strategies 1@gmail.com.
Snowstorm forces Chicago Heights to close City Hall. Snowstorm forces Chicago Heights to close City Hall, Chicago Heights, Illinois. Snow was on everybody's mind at Wednesday night's Chicago Heights City Council meeting. The Chicago area was hit by a major snowstorm, and Chicago Heights had about 10 inches of snow dumped on it Tuesday and Wednesday. City Hall was closed Wednesday afternoon because of the winter storm, and garbage pickup on Wednesday and Thursday was also postponed. And students at Chicago Heights School District 163 went to remote learning Wednesday because of the storm. The mayor's chief of staff, Karen Zaranti, thanked city workers for their efforts. She told the council that city workers had been working round the clock to keep city streets open and safe, and would continue to do so throughout the duration of the storm. Fifth Ward Alderman George Brassey also lauded city workers, saying, "The snowstorm we have experienced in recent days has been terrible, but the City of Chicago Heights Public Works Department has done an excellent job in maintaining the roads during the snowstorm. Each and every resident's request that was submitted to my office was addressed in a quick and efficient fashion." Christopher Bykoskas, 4th Ward Alderman, added that Public Works is working diligently, doing a great job cleaning up the streets. In other business, Zaranti said that the city would be hosting its second Illinois Department of Public Health clinic offering vaccinations and booster shots 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday, February 12 at City Hall. The council also approved an ordinance renewing the city's employee health insurance policy and premium. The city expects to see premiums remain roughly the same. The city's benefits and insurance consultant told the council that he was able to negotiate lower rates with its insurer, Blue Cross/Blue Shield PPO, despite higher prescription drug usage by the 231 employees covered under the policy. Snowstorm forces Chicago Heights to close City Hall.
Before we get to the interview, I just want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Union Signs and Printing. Union Signs and Printing is a union sign shop located near Chicago, Illinois, that specializes in the production of corrugated plastic lawn signs used in applications ranging from political and election usages to unions, schools, and businesses. They also produce a vast array of other products, including American-made, union-printed t-shirts, banners, bio cards, literature, door hangers, business cards, and trifold. Get a hold of Union Signs and Printing at 815-740-1688 or find them on the internet at unionsignsandprinting.com. And don't forget to tell them you heard about their services on the George Brassey podcast. I'm so glad to welcome to our podcast Evan Kasal. Evan, treasurer of the Cook County Republican Party. Evan, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Evan, tell the audience a little bit about how you ended up in a leadership role with the Cook County Republican Party.
Well, I kind of started out politically, I've always sort of been involved. I was involved back in college in the University of Michigan Republicans as well. But I'd always sort of been looking. I've started out originally with the Illinois Republican or Illinois politics, being a leader for the hashtag Walk Away movement, for being a state leader for Illinois, and I kind of started just going to events to promote Walk Away. And over time, I started, getting involved and learning about different political groups in Chicago. And I'd always thought it would be interesting to be a part of the, Chicago Republican Party or the Cook County Republican Party. And it kind of went from there. I'd moved into a different area of the city, and they didn't have a ward committeeman to represent that ward. And I can explain a little bit how Chicago politics was a little different than in the suburbs, but they needed someone to represent the Republican Party in my area. So I said, okay, I'd love to be involved in. And that's really where I'm at right now. I'm involved in multiple political groups, but obviously being a part of the official party is very exciting, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of it.
Talk a little bit about what it is. We know a lot of people have some idea of what the Democratic committeeman would do in a specific ward in the city of Chicago. What does the Republican committeeman do in that role?
So the way it's a little bit different because Chicago's a bigger city than a lot of suburbs, and the situation is being a alderman in the city is a politically neutral position. Now, in the city, we know that all the aldermen, while they're technically not Democrats, they all are politically Democrats, except for one, which people debate whether he's a Republican or not. But the Democrat ward committeemen in the city, that actually is not the city council. The aldermen are city council, but usually the Democrat ward committeemen are also the aldermen both. So technically, the Republican ward committeeman is the highest position you can be in that ward. So I represent the Republican Party for the 25th ward, which is Pilsen, Chinatown, and a part of the Loop. And that's what I'm doing is I'm supposed to be getting election judges for Republican election judges to represent us in elections for fair elections, building the Republican vote in my district, but also to just represent us when just like the way the Democrat Party is, same exact thing. When they have the Illinois Republican Party, the Cook County Republican Party, the Chicago Republican Party, they all roll up, the other way around. But my job is to represent my 50,000-ish voters. So a ward committeeman is basically like a township, like the Republican township head of, Naperville or whatever. It's kind of the same thing because they separate the city into 50 wards, and each ward is kind of like a little village within the city, I guess, or town, as it were.
Evan, talk a little bit about where the Republican Party in the state of Illinois is in 2021.
In 2021. So it's very interesting. We're actually kind of in a state of flux, especially because, the candidate that a lot of us were very supportive of course, we all talk about President Trump, but compared to other states, Illinois was never as pro-Trump politically, but there has been turnover in both the Chicago Republican Party and in the Illinois Republican Party as a new state chairman. And when it comes to where we're at right now, we're kind of in a rebuild mode, but I'm actually very excited about this. I became treasurer just recently, and I'm very excited. We're going to try to go in and try to reinvigorate for the midterms in 2022. And then we got the mayoral elections coming up after that. And so obviously we're going to definitely put up candidates, but we're also going to try to influence other candidates because we actually represent 20% of the city the way we see it. And that's really where we want to keep this from the Republican Party of Chicago. We want to keep conservative values going. And a lot of people do have conservative values, even if they vote Democrat. And that's really what what our goal is to kind of, when you say where we're currently at in our current stages, we're just trying to rebuild and figure out the identity of what we want to be. And it's very exciting because we're going to start having events. We're going to have donors donate to our crew so we can start planning more, events in the city, events in the suburbs, is leading from the city itself. But that's pretty much where we're at right now. That's the best way to say.
Do you feel that Governor Bruce Rauner was a failure for Republicans statewide?
Yeah, there were multiple reasons why, and I will say that's not always a hot take. A lot of Republicans felt like they were a little bit disappointed in him. They thought he was going to clean up the corruption that we see on the Republican side. And the part of it, the issue that we see with statewide is there's a lot a lot of races go uncontested, and what that causes is natural corruption because people are not actually held accountable for what they do. And so you saw just recently, a few years ago, a bunch of aldermen went down and got arrested. Um, I believe it was Alderman Burke, Alderman Solis, and it's like it's because that when you have in one party with complete control, it's hard to hold people accountable. With Rauner, a lot of people were very disappointed with him, and actually, he almost lost his primary because so many Republicans were upset with Rauner that he only got 53% in the primary for governor the year he tried to rerun. And a lot of people accuse him of giving up or leaving after. Obviously, a lot of this is rumors. This is not official party belief, but this is my personal belief that he kind of left us to dry, and it really kind of was disappointing to I think a lot of the leadership was that we felt like we thought he was like our big shot to like build our party, and it just kind of fell apart in the end. So what can you do at some point?
Do you feel that his kind of half-hearted embrace of Trump hurt him?
In this case, it's a really hard gamble because I would say, in my personal opinion, yes, but I don't think a lot of Republicans would agree with me on that, because the big debate has been since Trump has entered the stage is, are we the party of Trump, or are we still the fiscal Republicans that we always were, or the Republicans we always were? But the irony of this is, I'm personally of the belief that the party is the party the way it is now, and so what I mean by that is, neither party, Republicans or the Democrats, have never. Everybody thinks they go, "Oh, I'm a true Kennedy Democrat," or I'm a whatever, like a Bush Republican, or I'm a Clinton Democrat, or whatever they say. It's like the parties are always changing. Like the left, the Democrats were not the Democrats of the 1980s, the current Democrats. The Republicans of the right now, it is kind of the Trump party. I mean, that's the reality, and it's hard because I come from the moderate side, the walkaway side, which is much more pro-Trump, versus the establishment Republicans, which are much more weary of Trump because they've been around the game much longer than Trump has been, because he was a Democrat, and then he kind of built his reputation back in like the early, like 2012, 2013, 2015, 2014, 2015. And so I think it's really hard to tell. I do think that maybe if he had endorsed Trump a little bit more, it might have helped him, but it's hard to say because this is a very blue state, and a lot of the moderate Republicans don't vote for Trump. They actually vote against Trump. There's actually a negative for having Trump on the ballot. So
do you think that Trump will run for president again?
Oh yeah, this is all personally my belief. I think it's very likely he runs again, and if he doesn't run again, he'll be like I use the word like the Don. What I mean by that is I don't think he's gonna just run. A lot of people are like, "Oh, Trump's done now. He's gonna he's gonna move to, I don't know, to Fiji, or go off to his island and leave." I don't think that Trump's that kind of person. A lot of the establishment Republicans secretly want that, or they hope for that, but because they want to go back to the party before him. But I think it's unlikely. He doesn't think he lost the election. I think a very large percentage of Republicans do as well. And I know that's conspiracy in that scenario, but because of that, because he believes it, and because a lot of Republicans do also believe this, even whether or not it's true, I think it's very unlikely that he'll just disappear. I think it's much more likely that either he'll run for something like president. He could run for something else. Oh, I think he would. I don't think he'd run for anything besides president, to be honest. Or what is just as likely is that he also becomes the power broker. Like he's the one who decides. Like he's already endorsing candidates for 2022. Like he already endorsed Tim Scott for South Carolina. He endorsed a couple of other people, like the new Ohio Republican Party chair. So I don't know anything about that politics in Ohio, but yeah. So I think he'll definitely. The question is if he's going to run for president. I'm not 100%. But will he be involved still? Oh, yes. The party has completely changed, and we've gained a lot of demographics we never had before. And I don't think that we should, as Republicans, give that up. But also, I don't think Trump will give it up. His ego's too big, if you follow. But
Do you think there's any merit to the QAnon movement?
That's a really hard question because I think that a lot of it is very um I like I see some validity in what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say. Now, whether it is true or not, that's something that's still debatable. I have seen some things that seem coincidental, that seem suspicious based on stuff I've seen. Like I've seen some of the QAnon stuff, but at the same time, um, I'm not really sure. I'll be honest. I'm not like swinging either way or the other on that. I've heard things say that that is somehow related to Trump himself, but I really don't know. And that's kind of where I'm saying is a lot of it's very coded. A lot of it's kind of military, you know, lingo speak, which is not something I'm familiar with. But I have seen, and there are some things that they have like mentioned or correlated that seem interesting to me. And I'm like, if these are all true, I mean, wow. I mean that's a lot. That's very heavy what they're talking about. Like they're talking about very deep like corruption and stuff. But I don't know. I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Do you think the events that happened on January 6th, that doesn't scare most Republicans away from President Trump?
No, I don't think so. And the reason why I would say that is I know people who went there. I didn't go myself because I was working at the time, but um, I think that I think that there was a lot more going on the 6th than people want to believe, and they want to make it seem like it's just a bunch of Trump supporters who charged the Capitol, but it just seems a little out of character to me, considering how many rallies that Trump has had in the past, and there's been no violence at all. And I understand that this is their it's Trump potentially losing the election, and the people were upset and they were riled up, but I honestly don't think that, and I'll say this because I think a lot of times people want to believe that this will distance him from his base, and there's been a lot of other things that have come out about him, and it hasn't changed the way people feel about him. I'm not really sure. I think that there will be some people that will probably um, be a little bit more distant with him, but I think that the people who already believe in him will probably still believe in him in the movement, and they're not. Most of the people who support him are not those type of people. They're not the people who are raiding the Capitol and trying to storm Springfield or storm wherever the capitals of the United States. Like that's a lot of people who are just business people who just like that he supported fiscal conservatism, or that obviously I'm not a really big pro-lifer, but he also was a very big supporter of pro-life issues and nationalism, which is another thing a lot of people really support him for. Bad trade agreements with China, and those are things that you know President Biden would never, or doesn't support any of those things, and that's kind of where I know as an icon they might be annoyed by him, but I don't think necessarily that um, says that specifically will distance him from a large percentage of his base. I think a very small percentage of people would be like, I'm done, considering how many times he's been hit by the media for different reasons. People are just kind of at this point used to it and just kind of ignore it. I'll be kind of the way I see it. So I don't know.
Tell the audience a little bit about the walkaway movement.
Okay. Well, the walkaway movement, like I said, is what really got me involved in politics. Like I had been involved, but I really liked how walkaway was started by a gay hairdresser out of New York who basically said, he went on Facebook and said, I want to share my story about why I left the left, so walking away from the left. And the whole point of it was that he's from a community, the LGBTQ community, which is very, very left, and he was bullied and shamed by these people. And I felt like that was a tragedy. I've always been a conservative myself, so I would be a walk with. He's a leader. But the whole point of what I liked about Walkway and what I really care about that, and that's really what started me in politics, I just want to bring people together. And that's why it was really great to meet you, George, and be involved with you and talk to you about politics, because I'm I'm not the kind of person that's going to be like, okay, if you're a Democrat, you're a nobody, right? There are Republicans who are like that. They're very like, if you're if you're a Republican, then you're this. You're a bad person. If you're a Democrat, you're a bad person. But I really liked how Walkaway was. I would just have events, 30, 40 people. We just go to a bar and I just talk and we just get to know each other. And they just wanted to build a community of people. And I think that's what politics should be about. It shouldn't be about who has the most power and who can screw over who and all the things that happen in politics, or how can I, make more money on the backside when I make whatever. My real goal is just to bring people together, and Walkway was just about that. I would bring in establishment Republicans, but I would also bring in lots of people that they were just looking for something to do. They felt like they were isolated because they live in a very liberal area like Chicago, and they just wanted to make some friends that didn't just see them as a right-wing extremist, which is, these people are moderate Republicans. They're not even Republicans. They're just not Democrats. These are just people in the middle of the road. And that's kind of where I was like, there's Walkaway, the movement itself took notoriety after Brandon Straka went on to Mark Levin on Fox. But because obviously when you're walking away from the left, you're walking towards the right. And I kind of saw that. And that was partly one of the things I thought was interesting about it. Was it wasn't like we're going to go in there and we're going to shove a bunch of Republican policies at you and tell you why, as a Democrat, you're wrong, right? The whole point was just be like, look, we're reasonable people too. We just don't agree on everything, and that's okay, right? And so some people, not everybody is going to walk away, and that's fine. And people always ask me who are involved in the Republican Party, they're like, how do I convince my far leftist son to walk away and become a Republican? I'm like, the reality is you can't, because not everybody wants to be. Some people, and that's how it works. So some people are offended by Trump, they move from the right to the left. Some people don't like defunding of the police, they move from the left to the right. And that's just the way it is. My goal is just to be there for those people who are looking to who are looking for a new sense of belonging. They're looking to build their identity, and that's kind of where I'm at with Walkway. So we basically, Walkway, the movement, had 5 major demographics. It was the women vote, the LGBTQ vote, the minority vote, which includes Black and African Americans, or African Americans and Hispanics, and the Union Democrat, and I'm missing one. I'm trying to remember what the last one is. Oh, the millennial vote, or all votes that were trending conservative based on Trump's policies, but which might surprise people. But yeah, I saw all those groups move conservative, or at least move to the moderates, and that's really what I believe in that movement, because it's not about red versus blue or Republican versus Democrat. It's just kind of this bringing people together and having a good time. Made a lot of good friends, and a lot of people who are just looking to, find other people who are like them, who think similarly. Maybe they're libertarians, and that's fine. Not every libertarian is crazy. So there's a lot of and that's why I'm very passionate about that movement. I always say Walkaway. I'm officially part of the Chicago Republican Party. I always say Walkway is like my baby. That's really where I came from, and the movement's kind of been in trouble now because Brandon Straka was at the Capitol, and there's whole this insurrection involved. But the movement itself is something I truly believe in, whether or not the actual issues that happened in DC are unrelated to it.
Evan, what are 2 books you would recommend to the audience that have been influential to you as a person?
I was going to say, I know I'm going to be a traditional conservative when I say Atlas Shrugged is very interesting. I did read that book. I will listen to it on tape. I'm not a huge reader myself, but I will say that book I always found very interesting because it does talk about, I think a lot of times in, I'll say in reading, you always see, and I don't think people completely understand this, that the leftist perspective of the big corporation takes down the small man, and the small man is, he's fighting for social justice, and that's all very left. But the Atlas Shrugged is like the opposite. It's talking about how overreaching government can destroy society in the very similar way as the big corporation comes down and destroys the man. And I always found that very interesting. The other book that I've actually read this book many times, is Ender's Game. I've always been so I was an astrophysics major in college. I've always been a big sci-fi guy, but I've always found that reading books like Ender's Game, but also I'm a big Star Trek fan as well, the TV show and the movies. And I always find that when you look at politics from a perspective of sci-fi, it's actually very interesting because it's literally the same as our politics, world politics or US politics. It's just when you look at it from like the perspective of aliens instead of from, our small perspective of U.S. politics or Illinois politics or Chicago politics, it really helps you think about what you truly believe in, but also how the political game actually works at some level. Like when you talk about Star Trek, it's always very interesting that they talk about the different species and how they interact with each other. And but anyway, that's what Ender's Game would be the other book I'd recommend.
Evan, where can the audience find you on the internet?
I have my name, Evan Kasal, on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. You can always email me at my last name Kasal, just spelled Kasal, at chicagogop.com. Kasal at umich.edu, which is my university, my college email. Other than that, I mean, I'm always open to chat and talk, but I guess the best way to be communicated might just be on Facebook, but I just like to, I'm more of an in-person guy than like the social media website. I don't really have a website, but you can find me pretty much on any of the groups that I'm a part of: Log Cabin, Chicago Republicans, Chicago GOP, and Walkaway, which is the Facebook group.
Evan Kasal, thank you for coming on my podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad to be on.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Help George stay on the Chicago Heights City Council. Go and donate today at tinyurl.com/AldermanGeorge 2023. Need more George? Like his pages on Facebook. Friends of George Brassey PAC, Fifth Ward Business Alliance, Chicago Heights Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center, and the George Brassey Podcast.